Hi, this is Cheryl St.Pierre. In this video, we're going to make these woven elegant loop earrings. And I have the supply list right here for your screenshot. There we go. You're going to need your 20 gauge dead soft wire, which is 0.8 millimeters. Scraps to make the single bead links on top. And so we'll make that after we make the woven part, because we could use the scraps from that. And you're going to need 4 9-inch pieces. That's 22.5 centimeters. Then you're going to need 2 pieces of 28 gauge wire, which is 0.3 millimeters dead soft wire. And I'm using raw copper for this. Raw copper that I got from Rio Grande, for those that are always asking. I'm using 2 3.5 feet pieces. You're going to need 4 6-millimeter beads and 2 8-millimeter beads. Now, there isn't much of a size difference on those beads, but it still looks awesome in these earrings. So I think if you wanted to do a 10-millimeter bead, I think it would look clunky. So try to stay with these dimensions, the 6 and the 8, because I think it's gonna make a world of difference on how elegant it looks. And of course, your ear wires of choice. And for tools, it's very, very basic. Just your round nose pliers, your chain nose pliers, your flush cutters, and your ruler. Now, you might have noticed that I have oxidized these earrings. I just wanted to show you the difference it makes when you oxidize. So when I'm done this tutorial, you'll see it with it not oxidized and with it oxidized. And I'm actually using genuine turquoise in the video today. So, and it's a greenish kind of color. So it's going to be similar color to the pearls I used, but a genuine gemstone instead. So anyway, so let's move on from here. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate the weave first, and I'm doing a shorter wire just to make it easier, because I always do my weaving ahead of time because it takes me so long to do it. Not everybody takes as long as I do. Okay, so your pieces are 9 inches long. You're going to be weaving 2 inches in the middle. So that means you're going to start from your left side about 3.5 inches. And you can always use a pair of pliers to pull your core wires, your 20 gauge, slide them to help it in place, to help it get there anyways. Awkward on my words today, obviously. Okay, so I'm lassoing in my wires. So I've got the first wire, and I've just made 1 loop around it, and now I'm going to set the next wire underneath and wrap around it, under and up. And then that way, and I'm going to compress it. That way it holds the wires together for when you're working, and you don't need extra tools for it. It just does the job. Okay, so we're doing the 3/4 weave, which is my most common weave that I do. So I'm on top of the wires right now. I'm going to go down underneath both wires and up. I got the tail in the way. Okay, and then I'm going down between both wires. Keep it in. Okay. So now I have a long slash and 2 short slashes. That's what it looks like. That's what the pattern is. Long, 2 short, long, 2 short. And it's going to be exactly the same on the other side. Okay, so that's the pattern. So now I'm going to come up, and I'm going to bend, and I'm going up across both on top. Get into focus. Come on. There you go. And now I'm going to come up between the 2 wires And now I'm going down, and I'm going underneath both wires, and I'm going to go down between the two wires. So it's up between the two wires, down between the two wires, up between, and that's going to be repetitive. And we're going to do the pattern. I'm going to cinch this up right away because it's easier to do like 2 or 3 patterns when you start. It gives it stability. But after that, I do 4 patterns and then cinch it up. Compress it. Okay, so across. And another secret I do is I'm pulling tight and around to get the bend, the shape. It's going to keep your weaving neater. And then I let go so that the tension releases. And then I pull up between the 2 beads. Okay. So that's 1 pattern. 2 patterns. Whoops, bumped the phone. Okay. Three patterns. 4 patterns. And I always support it as close as possible. Otherwise, you're going to end up bending it when you're pulling the wire tight. Hopefully that made sense. So support as close as possible to where you're weaving. Okay, and I'm actually going to do a little technique on how to straighten it. If you did bend it, just a little something with all my experience came across doing, and it only works if you do your weaving ahead of time, which I do with most of my projects. So there you go. That's how you do the weave. And now we'll move on to creating the earrings. So of course, I'm going to get you to pause at this point and do 2 inches of weaving. Make sure that they're both the same length. You want it 2 inches. 2 inches is 5 centimeters for those that are metric. And where I'm going to pause and grab my weaving. Okay, so once you've got your weaving done, once you have it all compressed, and then we'll expand, I want you to compare the weave to make sure that it's the same length on both of them, and you want it pretty close to 2 inches. I mean, it's not crucial, but you do need them to be the same length so that your earrings are going to be the similar length. Now, this pair, even though I'm trying to be so careful, they aren't quite the same length, I don't think. It's pretty close, but one is about 1 millimeter longer than the other. And, you know, that's going to happen with these earrings. There's not much you can do about it, but we want to try and do as best we can. So the next thing I want you to do is snip off the weaving wire and crimp it in. So just trim it off. It's going to be in the center, which is good, because usually when you crimp it in, it makes it so that there's not anything poking out. Sometimes it pulls out on you, so I just cinched it back in. Yeah, no pokies. And, whoops. Okay, something happened there. Okay, so if you measure your end, it should be approximately 3.5 inches. And I think I'm a little off on my center. You can pull a little bit by pulling at the end and holding onto your weave and tugging. You need to be careful when you're doing that because you could pull the wire through. It depends on how loose your weave is. Sometimes you can't pull it at all. continue with this. Okay, so I've got that. Now the next thing I want you to do is look at both sides of your weave and see if one side is neater than the next. And I think this one's neater. And so I want you to have the neatest side up and then take this wire, the bottom wire, and bend it down. And do the same thing for the other side. Bend it down. And you can do the same with the next one. Okay, I'm flattening it. It's just straightening it a little bit. Which side's neater? I think this side. So I'm just going to bend this down and bend this down. Now, because we are going to mirror our earrings, we are going to have, now this is the upside with the wire down. We are going to put the big bead on this side and the little bead on this side. And the other one, we're going to have the little bead on this side and the big bead on this side. So opposite. And that is what's going to mirror it for us. So I'm going to start with the big bead on the left side. And you want to hold it as close as you can to the weave and bend this wire straight up to lock the bead in, like that. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to wrap this wire around and have it come over top of your other wire, like that. And now you're going to pull both of your wires straight up, and then I see my weave is twisting on me and my bead is moving, so I'm going to try and straighten that a little bit. Didn't do this to me yesterday when I was making my prototype. Okay, I think we got it. And now I'm going to have it at an angle. I'm not going straight to the top of the bead because we want to take and do a little bit of a finger swirl right above the bead. We don't want the swirl to really cover the bead, but we want it like that, and then we want it to be this way, and we're going to have it at an angle. Okay, so I want you to leave it at that point. And I have this wire where it's not hugging the bead as much as I'd like to. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to push it down. Whoops, push it down with like that. Yes, that helped. Okay, now I'm going and see, I want you to pay attention that we've got this wire going down, and that's going to help us with our direction later, and this wire going down. And now I want you to take a 6mm bead and do the exact same thing on the opposite side. Of course, it'll be going the opposite direction. I'm going to snip this bend off. Okay, so I've got this wire going up, so it's over that bead, and now I want to carefully bend that. Of course, I could have bent that first. That's what I did on the other side, so whichever. And so I've got it like that. I'm going to do my little finger swirl. And this time we're going to have it more, because we have less room. We're going to have, you'll see this later, we'll have less room for this. We want this actually bent almost perpendicular like that. Okay, so now we're going to do the exact same thing with the other earring. Now we've got the other earring. We're going to take the big bead and put it on the right hand side, the 8mm bead. And I'm going to bend this up. And this time I'm going to take, and this is what you could do as a trick too. And before you do anything else, just push that in tight. And now I'm going to take this and bend it, have the two wires together, do my loop. And there, like that. Okay. Didn't quite sit right. That's okay. Now I'm going to take my little bead, my 6mm bead, put it on. Oops, we want that to be the opposite direction. What am I doing? Okay. Wrap that around. My weave twisted, I'm going to straighten it. There, that looks good. Do my swirl. Like that. And now they're ready. See, they're the opposite. Okay, so now for the next step, the reason why I left this out is to tell us what direction to bend our wire. So we want to find about the center of the weave, which should be 1 inch, right? Which is 2.5 centimeters. And that's where we're going to start the bend. And make our loop. Well, we're not quite making the full loop yet, so just watch what I do. We want to bend it, and we want to have the bottom of this bead, which I can tell that I'm not quite doing it, at the top of this bead. And our little wiring is going to need straightening afterwards, because we always mess it up when we do this. No matter what you do, it's going to need to be fixed. And my weave is always slanting, so I gotta straighten it up, and I'm gonna just bend this up a little bit more. So what I'm doing is virtually just moving this up and moving that down, because I want that to be, so now I need this bead higher, so I'm gonna keep wiggling it till I get it to have that. I think I'm there. I think I'm there. And now we're going to cross over, because we want this bead to sit like that. Now, and my weaving is tilted again. I'm just going to straighten it out very gently. You could use your vinyl pliers for this if you wanted. Of course, it's going to be really difficult on video. My other one, I did one, just did it smooth as can be, and the other one was being difficult like this. So it's par for the course. It's going to happen 50-50, I would think. Okay, so now I want to make sure that this wire is tight. So what happens is it loosens up, moves out of place. So I got to push this over, make that wire tight. And my weaving's still not doing what I want it to do. So we just need to keep gently manipulating it, and it will do what we want it to do eventually. Remember, every time we do something like this, it's work hardening it, so it's good as long as you're not marring your weaving. And I'm being very gentle. I'm just kind of coaxing the direction of the wire. See, I'm not marring the wire at all. But your nylon pliers would be good for this too. Now, somebody asked me why I don't use them in my videos, and it's because I'm trying to show that you can get away with using as little tools as possible. You don't have to spend a fortune on tools to do wire wrapping. Aha, think I got it. I think I got it. Okay, so again, this moved on me. Gotta fix it into place. And now I'm holding, now I've got it where I want it. And I'm gonna bend these wires back. So they're in the, this is the back. So this is what they look like. And I'm gonna tighten this one up. And I'm going to actually snip this out of my way. We're going to tuck that in. When you snip, be careful not to snip anything but the wires you really want snipped. Okay, so we need it to have some length to tuck it in. I might have it a little bit too long, but I can trim that off. Okay, and now I'm supporting this and bending it around the weave. And I'll trim that off. Okay, so, and that's what it looks like at the front. So this is still looks a little bit messy. I'm just going to tighten it up a little bit more. And I'm going to tuck that in so that we don't have any sharp pokes coming out. But you also got to make sure you can't see it from the front, and we're doing good. And now we'll do the same with this. Supporting everything so I'm not distorting it from the front. Keep this level. And I'm like very gentle squeezing, ladies. Well, and gentlemen. And I think that one is done. Okay, so now we move on to the next one and we do the exact same thing. We're going to hold the big bead down again, but because these wires are going this way, it's telling us we're bending the curve this way. So we're moving to the left. So we want to start it about the center. And I'm going to try holding my weave flat while I do the bend and see if that makes a difference. And it started bending already. Now, is it? I think I'm going pretty good. Actually could go down a little bit more, even. There we go. And I see that I might have to oh, now I went too far. So you just keep manipulating it till you get there. and having your curve look nice too. And we do want to try and get those loops fairly similar. So it's going to take some patience. Yeah, I'd say we're pretty good. So I'm holding this flat to try and help, but it just bent somewhere else. Okay, so I've got curve and I'll have to manipulate that. So I'm going to do that off camera and be right back. Okay, so this one's being really super difficult, so it's got a bit of a curve still, and I think I might just call it quits with that because I am scared that I'll wreck the weave, and I'd rather be a bit curved than wreck the weave. Okay, so now I'm going to tighten up the frame around the bead. I think we got it okay there. And I'm supporting everything and bending it behind and snipping off. Okay, and now I'll straighten out this, tighten that wrap, the frame for that bead, and do the support again. And snip that off. Okay, we're on the home stretch here. Now, I have a couple of snips that the two longest snips that we have that we snipped off, they're about 1.5 inches. I'd say they're long enough for making our the beaded element above. So don't throw those out. Okay, so I'm turning these in here. Now this one's awkward for me. I'm going to hold it upside down. There. So it's not touching anything, it's just bent in. And that's what it looks like from the front. I'm just going to a little bit more. There. Okay, so that's the two of them. They're almost bang on for the length. The loops look a tiny bit different, but you know what? We're going to be happy with that because if we try to manipulate it too much, you'll end up making it look worse, as well as you could wreck the weave. Okay, so, and you know, when you've got it on your ears, you don't see that. And the beaded element's going to take away that look too. Okay, so the next thing is to grab those long scraps, the two longest scraps that you have, and take your round nose pliers. And we're going to take for the end, and we're going to take the favorite size loop that we always use for our earrings, which is, you know, the same one you use to make your ear wires. And we're going to make an eye loop. So we're going to start off with a P loop. And then I just take and pinch it like this and bend the wire like this to make it an eye loop. Okay? And that's the loop that's going to go into your ear wire. And now I am, because it tends to get bent, I'm going to flatten all that out and squeeze on that curve. That's going to work harden it. Okay, so that's ready to go put my 6mm bead on it. Now, if you wanted to, you could use a 4mm bead here, but I don't know why I wanted the 6mm, but I think the 6mm looks great. So the loops we want perpendicular to each other. So I'm going to hold the bead like this. I want this loop that way, and I'm going to push the wire. I'm holding the bead right next to that loop and bending it so it looks like this. And then I'm going to take a larger portion of, as big as I can go with the bead not getting in the way. And we got to pay attention as to where we are because we want to have the same size on both of them. And make that loop because that will make a difference for the length of your earring as well. So we need to make these very similar. Okay, there we go. Got that loop made. And that's the loop that this is going to go on to. And now I'm going to take my snips and snip it right in there. So that we can close up that loop. But before we do that, anything else, I am going to work harden that. And if you flatten the wire a little bit, that's okay. Okay, so right after you're done that, I want you to take your next big piece of scrap and do the exact same thing, and to double check the size of loop you made, go like this, and that's where you want to make the loop, the small loop. Whoops, sorry. So basically exactly what we did with the other one. Got to make sure it's fairly closed. And then take your bead. Well, actually, got to straighten it. I'm going to work harden it a bit. Straighten it. Then put the bead on. Hold it like that. Do the bend. And double check. So basically I did it as big as I could. And this big one is going to be, a big loop is going to be harder to make perfectly round, but it's going to be facing this way, so it's going to be okay. Nobody's going to be able to check because the weaving is going to be in the way as well. So make that loop. Okay, make sure everything's straight, and we want them to be perpendicular to each other. Far from round. I'm going to try and round that a little bit better. Okay, do a snip. And work harden it. Make sure everything's perpendicular and straight. Looks good. Now, just gonna, doesn't matter which way you put it because it's gonna be front ways no matter what at this point. Close that up. And this is when you grab your ear wires. I just gotta go grab mine. Okay, so my ear wires magically appeared. Open up that loop. Actually, that's not what you want to do. You want to keep that loop as pretty as possible. You're going to open up the loop on your ear wire. And now is when you got to make sure you have it facing the right way so that you have it like that. And I just noticed my loop here kind of went sideways on me. If you want it to be more flat, then you would take like a plier and push it down, or you would be happy with it the way it is. And it looks pretty no matter what. I just want it to be a little bit this way. There. To me, that just makes it look better. Okay, so that one's done. And now we'll assemble the other one. Make sure everything's straight and square. Open up that big loop. Close up that loop. Open up the ear wire. Then the next check you would do is to make sure that it hangs forward. So you just hold your ear wire and make sure it hangs forward. And I noticed that it's sitting forward from the weaving, so I just need to do a little bend here. See how it's curved? I'm just gonna straighten that a little bit. And now it looks better. And that one's done. And that one looks good the way it is. So the weaving can have a little bit of a bend here so that it sits level. So this one could be kind of bowed this way. And then the back one you probably want pretty much level. And there they are. Actually, I always have them sit like this. I'll zoom in on that. And there they are. Wonderful. Okay, well, God bless. Thank you for joining me in this video. And, you know, share the video with others on Facebook or Twitter or wherever, you know, share the link. And, you know, think about joining my membership, helping support me, keep this channel open. And, of course, like and please comment. The more the comments I have, the better my videos get out there. It, for some reason, makes it go out there better. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Hi, this is Cheryl St.Pierre, and this is just a little tip that I have, kind of like a hack for if you're doing weaving, and especially for like projects that I do where I do the weaving ahead of time, because if you were doing, you wouldn't be able to do this in the middle of a project where you're adding on weaving. But when you have just the weave as a standalone, this is a good tool to use. So say you're weaving and you're not supporting, you're supposed to support as close as possible to the weaving so that your weaving doesn't bend. But once in a while, you forget to do that. And it does this. It does this. This isn't very, I'll make it worse. Or it does something like that. And you're going, oh no, how am I going to fix that? I'm going to tell you something that I do. Now, I'm going to move the wires back and forth through the weave, and it will help with that. But I don't want it to pull straight out, so I'm going to bend the ends like that to give it a lock. And at this point, I'm just pulling on these wires. I'm holding the weave, and I'm going to pull the wire. And sometimes this can be challenging, especially with a 3/4 weave. And you see how the weaving itself straightened, but the wire there is still bent. So now we're going to put locks on the other end. And we're going to pull the wire on the other end. And you do that a couple of times and that wire will straighten out too. But at this point you could probably do this with your fingers, but you don't want to work hard on it too much, depending what you're going to be doing. Anyways, so that will straighten out your weave. And then you're going to position it. It slides really easy now. You're going to position it where you need it to be at this point. And there, the weave's nice and straight. And that's my little trick. Thank you for joining me. God bless, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.